All right, so welcome all of you. Today we're going to be talking about cycling the Palouse. Mostly what that's going to be looking like is just letting you know what kinds of rides are out there and what's available for cyclists in this region this summer. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. Maybe. Oh, there we go. All right.
Oh, yes. Okay. So we're going to start off with intros. Go ahead and if you don't want to like speak or your microphone is broken, you can always type it in the chat. But we're going to go ahead and do name, your current location, your cycling experience / interest, like if you want to get into something, but maybe you haven't gotten into it, and what you're hoping to get out of this webinar. I can go first. My name is Liz. I'm currently in Pullman. Cycling experience, nothing really more than just like biking around town, like kind of like biking to places. But my interests, I kind of was gonna get like a little bit more into mountain biking. Like I don't want to go like too hardcore. And then just kind of going on like bike rides where I don't have like a real like destination. Like I'm not trying to get to work or to the store or something. Like I want to go on like the trails and stuff.
Awesome. I'll go ahead and go next. My name is Alita. I work at the ORC. I'm very happy to be here tonight. I'm also in Pullman, probably on a different hill than Liz is right now. In terms of cycling experience, I love cycling. I haven't done like a whole lot necessarily, but I bike to school, I bike to commute, I go on bike rides because it's fun. I've been going mountain biking more recently, really only a handful of times mountain biking. And then I try to go on a longer bike ride like at least once a month or so. And have been in Pullman for 4 years now. So I'm really starting to get to know the Palouse and really getting to love it as a bicycling option. It looks like we have one participant. If you're comfortable sharing, that'd be awesome.
Yep. I'm Carson. I also am in Pullman, and I like riding my bike around for exercise and leisure, and also to get to and from class. I know that there's mountain biking around. I don't know much about mountain biking, so hope to learn more about that. Yeah.
Awesome. Is there anything specific you're hoping that we'll touch on, Carson?
I'd be interested to know more trails in the area for both road biking and mountain biking.
Awesome. Cool. Alrighty. So we'll first start off with just what you need. The number one thing is you need a bicycle. Doesn't necessarily have to be top-notch bicycle. If you're going to be on the road primarily, a road bike is nice. Like you'll definitely go faster, but certainly not necessary. And the type of bike you have should not be stopping you from getting out and going for bike rides here on the Palouse. You also want to make sure you have some sort of food and water. Food, I guess, is less necessary, especially if you're not going for a very long ride. And then water, most bicycles do come with a water bottle cage, or you can also install one pretty easily. Appropriate clothing, if it's raining, bring a raincoat. If it's hot, don't. And then here on the bottom, I have a picture of everything that you might need to repair a flat. And if you haven't done this before, there's lots and lots of resources. You could go on YouTube, find out how that way. Also, Paradise Creek and B&L Bicycles in Pullman and in Moscow. They have some really knowledgeable staff. And if you do go there with a problem with your bike, not only will they help you fix it, but they'll also teach you like how to fix it if you're willing to learn. And the same is true for our outdoor recreation center and our Fix It bike shop, although that is currently closed at the moment. But once we open up, that will be an option too. So yeah, are there any questions about this?
Yeah, what are those little yellow tabs down the bottom?
Yeah, so here where my mouse is, those are called tire levers. And if you look at your bike really closely, you'll see that the rubber is kind of tucked inside the rim, and it's essentially impossible to get out if you don't have these. So this is what you need in order to access the tires so that you can fix the puncture.
Gotcha.
Woohoo! So these are just a couple of trails that are near Pullman. They're basically all going in the same direction, which is towards Troy, Idaho. It just depends on which part you want to do, like how much biking you actually want to do. The Bill Chipman Trail goes from Pullman to Moscow, and it's 7 miles one way. And to be honest, like you could do it in like an hour, even if you're like a beginner biker. It's pretty flat. I would say like, yeah, pretty much flat. And lots of people go biking, running, walking on it. And it's kind of nice because, I don't know, you just get to see like some, I almost said mountains, but that's not right. Some hills, which is, I don't know, it's kind of nice. Just kind of nice to get out there, especially on like a nice sunny day. And then there is the Latah Trail, which goes from Moscow to Troy. And this is in Idaho. But it's, so here, let me touch on the Paradise Path one first. So Paradise Pass connects the Bill Chipman Trail and the Latah Trail. So the Paradise Path basically goes through Moscow to get you to the start of the Latah Trail. And then I've never been personally on the Latah Trail, but I've heard from other people that it's a fairly good ride. And you can do the, if you want like a long day, you can do the Bill Chipman Trail all the way to like Troy, and come back. Or there's also Bear Creek Canyon, which is, how far away is Bear Creek from like Troy?
They connect. Like Troy is a very, very, very small city. I don't know if many people would call it a city. So you can get from the end of the Latah Trail to the beginning of Bear Creek Canyon in like 3-4 minutes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's about, the trail on is about 4 miles long, but you can also camp there, which is kind of nice. And I've heard from people who have done it that it's really pretty to bike through.
All right. So let's talk a little bit about some of the road biking that's available here in the Palouse.
Sorry, I've got a quick question about the
Yeah.
Bear Canyon Trail. Bear Creek Canyon. Is that paved the whole way, or is that does that get into gravel?
Yes.
Or trail? Or?
So that first
Okay, cool.
4 miles that we're talking about, you can kind of see it here. After that, it changes to gravel, and the gravel road apparently goes all the way to Kendrick, which is quite a ways out, but that's not maintained at all. So that's
Gotcha.
more something
Okay.
that you'd want to hike rather than bike.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for your questions, by the way. So yeah, some of the hills, or some of the rolling hills that are on the Palouse, are also available for biking. And you can bike most main roads. I know some of the highways can get a little bit sketchy, like 26 or 95. All of those main highways would be definitely something that you would want to avoid. But all of like the lesser used roads, especially farm roads, you can also go like through the wheat fields on some of those dirt roads. And there's plenty of options for long days of biking if you want. So just some of our favorites. This first one is Wawawi County Park. If any of you have done anything with the ORC, we do a lot of our programming down there for kayaking and stand-up paddleboarding. And that is a really, really fun bike ride. It's very quiet, it's very beautiful. It also has a huge climb on the way back. You lose multiple thousands of feet of elevation gain when you descend into the canyon. Like I did it 3 times. And you ride without pedaling for about 20 minutes during those last 5 miles that are all downhill. And then coming up, it's a climb. Another favorite is Kamiak Butte, which you can see here on the bottom. Maybe you've been to Kamiak Butte to go hiking, and that's also a really fun bike ride. It does go on a busier road. That's the road to Palouse. And because of that, it's best not to go at a time when there's going to be a lot of traffic. So for instance, maybe don't go right after a WSU football game ends, but like midweek or even on the weekend tends to be a really, really nice ride. And then yeah, down here we have look at Google Maps, make your own route. When planning a route, just with Google Maps, looking for somewhere to go on the Palouse, I often like to go to satellite view just to get a sense of what I'm going to be looking at. Is it going to be a lot of wheat fields, rolling hills, or are we maybe going to get into some trees, going through any fun towns? So yeah, Google Maps, satellite view, and that way you can figure out how long your ride is going to be. One other thing that I didn't mention is there's several apps available for tracking your ride if you're into that type of thing. Strava is really good, and also Map My Ride has some cool features where you can see elevation, et cetera, et cetera.
Also, Gaia is also a good one. It just kind of tracks like everything, and then you can like classify it as like, oh, I went biking or I went hiking. Yeah. Woohoo! So there are some longer trails that are available that are a little bit further away, but I mean, if you're looking for a longer bike ride, you're gonna have to go a little bit further away. So the Trail of the Coeur d'Alenes goes from Plummer, Idaho to Mullen, Idaho, and it's about 72 miles, which seems like a lot, but I mean, it's mostly like flat. And there also, I know of at least one state park that it goes through, which is Hayburn State Park, and there's camping there. So I'm sure you can always like look up if there's places to camp along the way and do some like bike camping if you want to do it all. You can also do like certain stretches of it. You don't have to do like the whole thing. And then Hiawatha Trail. So this is on the Idaho Montana border. And it's 15 miles one way, so it's like a 30-mile day. It's like the same as like Kamiak. But it's pretty cool because I think it's a lot more scenic than Kamiak probably. And it is like a trail. So I don't know how much of it is paved. Okay, yeah. So I wouldn't recommend like a road bike. Maybe more of like a hybrid bike or a mountain bike. I think hybrid bike might be your best option with like front wheel suspension. Just because I'm sure there's just like some holes, some divots, and I know bikes without the front wheel suspension tend to be a little bit harder going over like holes and stuff. And oh, there's also a shuttle available. That's pretty cool. So like you can bike one way and then shuttle back, which is kind of cool. So this picture, you can't see my mouse. The picture with the moose, I believe, is on the Trail of the Coeur d'Alenes, which is kind of cool, but also kind of frightening. I don't think that happens very often, so don't let that scare you off. But it could be cool if it did.
Yeah. And one more thing to add about the Trail of the Hiawathas, it's run and maintained by the same group that runs Lookout Pass, if you've ever gone skiing there, and they're the ones that offer that shuttle. So if you don't have your own way to shuttle, like that's fine, you can definitely use that service. And this top picture is one of those old railroad trestles, and across the whole course of the trail, there's 7 of these. Some of them are 230 feet high, so if you want to be on a railroad trestle going through the Bitterroot Mountains, like that's an option. And then there's also 10 tunnels. So it's really important that if you do go on the Trail of the Hiawathas that you have some sort of bike light so that you can see during those sections.
So that's a good thing to point out. I would have gone and not had a bike light.
Yeah, I haven't done the Trail of the Hiawathas yet. That's definitely on the list though.
Heck yeah.
Cool. And now we go to Moscow Mountain, which you've probably seen from the top of the Glen Terrell Mall or from the top of the library. This is right in our backyard, and it's very well maintained, and there's maps available both on the Mamba, the Moscow Area Mountain Bike Association, as well as on the Trail Forks app. The mountain biking here is awesome. There's been a lot of work put into it. There are many trails and a lot of scenic viewpoints. I would recommend if you're starting the Headwaters Trail. That's, I want to say, around 6 miles long, and it's intermediate. It's got a little bit of ups and downs. There's a couple sections that have a lot of routes, and those are all things that you could walk. And there's not really any sections where it becomes really bad if you fall. And then you can also make that trip a lot longer if you want to extend it up to Paradise Point. There's a nice overlook there, or you can even go further than that and just explore really all of Moscow Mountain. So like I said, Mamba was the group that created all of these trails, and it used to be a little bit more secretive, like you needed to be part of the organization in order to obtain a map, but that's since changed, especially since the Trail Forks app did come out. And at this link, which I guess maybe when we make this into a YouTube video, we'll add this link in the comments. but this link will take you to the description of all of the mountain bike trails that are available. There's a whole mix of easy trails and harder trails and like really hard trails, but there's really something for everyone there. And then the TrailForks app is awesome. You can download the maps for that region and it has the GPS integrated into it. So when you're standing at a fork between two trails, you can use the GPS to figure out where to go. They've also recently signed everything that was within the last year. So they have all the names of the trails written at each of the forks. Cool. Is there any questions we had about the mountain biking, Musco Mountain? It's pretty close. It's about less than half an hour drive from Pullman to get to the closest trailhead. And there's no specific parking passes that you need to park either.
So we're just gonna go over LNT kind of quickly. I guess not quickly, but briefly. Just run through them. And these principles aren't specific to biking. They're just the leave no trace principles in general. But it's good to keep them in mind whenever you're recreating outside, not just biking, because the whole point of LNT is to leave everything how you found it, so that other people can enjoy what you've enjoyed. Because if you see something, like you're on a trail and you're like, oh, this is gorgeous, and then you make a campfire right in the middle of the trail, which is an awful idea. Don't do that. But some people are going to come along and they're going to be like, oh, there's just like a campfire pit, and it's just not going to be the same for them. So just kind of like reducing our impact when we go outside. So I'm just going to go over them briefly and how they might pertain to cycling. And if you have any questions about it, just ask them. So the first one is plan ahead and prepare. You should definitely know where you're going, have a map of it in some way to be able to see that map, especially if you go out of cell service. So maybe having maps downloaded, or also Google Maps, if you start it, like open the app while you're in cell service, it will continue to show you while you're out of cell service, which is kind of nice. And planning ahead and preparing can also prevent you, like if you didn't realize how long a trail was or how long you thought it would take you to get there, and now you've got to camp overnight and you're like, I wasn't prepared for this, you might make some mistakes and camp somewhere you're not allowed to camp, or make a fire during fire ban season. So just kind of like knowing those things, and I guess being kind of prepared for the worst, but hoping for the best. And then number 2 is travel and camp on durable surfaces. For this one, I would definitely say if you're going to camp on a durable surface like rocks, or like I don't know if I would recommend on rocks, but don't camp in the middle of a meadow, because you're gonna, when you lay down your tent, you lay, and like when you lay down to sleep, it's gonna flatten all the grass. And the point of leave no trace is if someone were to walk past the same area, it would not look like you've been there. So try your best to avoid like really tall grassy areas, and maybe go for more bare spots. But also when biking, try to stick to the trail. There should be no real reason for you to get off the trail. If it's like a narrow trail and somebody's coming the opposite direction, go ahead, just maybe, move off the trail a little bit and let them pass. But there should be no real reason for you to get off the path, because those paths are there for a reason. And you don't want to get lost either. That would be bad. And then dispose of waste properly. Depending on which trail you're on, like the Bill Shipman Trail, for example, has like some porta potties, like, spread along the path. I'm not sure about the other ones. But if you do have to use the bathroom, the most LNT way is to like basically like poop in a bag and carry it out with you, which might kind of suck. But if not, you can always dig a hole and poop in the hole. But this would also be something that you would be looking up when you're planning your bike ride, is like, okay, are there places to use the bathroom? Can I, pee in the woods? Like, what's the deal? Because in some places you can't, and you would have to like poop in a bag. But if that happens, you can poop in a tiny bag and then put it in a larger bag, so there's no issue about it going everywhere. And then also like any wrappers or anything like that, you're gonna want you take that out too. Like we don't leave like trash everywhere. That's bad. And then number 4, leave what you find. This one is kind of general. Just if you find something that looks pretty, leave it there. Let somebody else enjoy it as well. And this kind of just goes for everything. Don't take it. Unless, of course, it's left behind gear, then it's free gear. So in that case, take it because it wasn't supposed to be there. And then number 5, reduce campfire impacts. This one isn't super pertainable to biking unless you plan to be making a fire for some reason. Like if you're gonna camp, and if you do camp, I would highly recommend using a backpacking stove instead, because you don't have to take things from the environment and you don't have to have a fire at all. They're a lot more friendly to LNT principles. And if you absolutely do need to make a fire, it should be no bigger than 3 feet in diameter. You really don't need like a big fire. Like bonfires are totally overdoing it. And if you do make a fire, just make sure it's all the way out before you leave. Because some people, put it out like, oh, I don't see any more flames or anything. But if you dig down into the coals, like it can still be burning. And that's a no-no because it could start back up. Like it may not, but it could. And then number 6, respect wildlife. Don't try and feed the animals, especially the squirrels. They're already getting kind of chunky. And as cute as a chunky squirrel would be, they're not supposed to be chunky. And it also encourages animals to come and interact with humans. And that can sometimes be a cause for animals to be put down, especially if it's something bigger like a bear or a moose. So this is also like disposable waste. Like try, if you drop something on the ground like food or something, go ahead and pick it up as well. And kind of observe wildlife from a distance if you do see it. Like it's their home and we're kind of visiting, so don't disrupt them for like a cool picture. Just kind of observe from a distance. And then number 7, be considerate of other visitors. This is kind of like being considerate, like being a decent human being. Like if it's a narrow path and you're, in this case, if somebody's coming like a hill, if somebody's coming down a hill and you're going up it, I don't know how it's supposed to be, like which one is first, but if you're coming up, you should have the right of way. But in my head, I'm thinking it's more intuitive to let the person going downhill go, especially if it's a steep hill. They may have trouble stopping. And as much of a pain in the butt as it would be to stop going uphill, it'd be a lot less of a pain than to crash into somebody. And also with like playing music, like some people like to listen to music when they bike, consider like headphones or like a small speaker like in your bag. Just don't turn it up too loud because I promise you not everybody wants to listen to your music. And just, I don't know, don't be mean to people on the trail. That's kind of all I got for LNT.
Well, that's all we have for you today. So hopefully you're able to find all the resources you need. Remember, Google Maps is your friend if you're trying to come up with a route yourself. Also, the Facebook Outdoors page, the Washington State Outing Club, is a great place to find friends to go ahead and go biking with. And then this little pamphlet, I don't know if you can see it very well with my virtual background, it's made by the Pullman Chamber of Commerce. And they don't have it online, unfortunately, but once they're all open and ready for business, you can go in and grab one of those. And that just gives you even more biking ideas. Also, the Outdoor Recreation Center, I just want to tout it one more time. We do have mountain bikes for rent, and especially if you're looking to get out on Moscow Mountain and want a really smooth ride, that is one way to go. So do we have any last questions before we stop the recording?
I would like to add something. The ORC also has a program where if you don't have a bike, they have, I think, 6 hybrid bikes that they rent out for like a semester, and it's like $50. Which is a pretty good deal, especially like if you're thinking of like buying a bike and you don't know if you're actually going to use it that much. Because I mean, even like a cheap bike is probably about like $100 to $200. So that's also like an option, like if you want kind of like a personal one for a while. And they're all like kept up, so you didn't have to worry pretty much about the maintenance, unless something happens to it like while you're renting it, but they come to you in a good condition.
Awesome. Well, thank you all so much for coming tonight.